thumbnail.
What is up, everybody? We rejoin our 5 heroes in Portsmouth, Ohio, ready to set out on their tour across the state. 6 days of riding, 5 nights of camping, over 450-mile bike tour. There is a bike tour across Ohio that's becoming very popular. It's called the Ohio to Erie Trail. We were calling our ride the Alt Ohio to Erie Trail, or the Alt OTET, because we would be starting in Portsmouth instead of Cincinnati, Ohio. We would end up rejoining the traditional route outside of Columbus and Centerburg, Ohio, but that would be with just a day and a half left to go. On this morning, we started by getting some breakfast at a couple spots and coffee, and then looping around down by the river. That was a graffiti art, public art installation there. Then we rode along the flood walls, which have been painted with these really cool murals telling the whole history of Portsmouth, Ohio, and the region. One of the reasons I wanted to start down here was to see where the Ohio and Erie Canal ended, because I ride along the Towpath Trail and the former Ohio-Erie Canal in Akron all the time. Akron is a canal town, and so are the areas around me, so I've just never seen any bit of the southern section and what it's like down there on the Ohio River. And Portsmouth is where the Scioto River dumps into the Ohio River, and that would kind of be the route we were following for the first part of the day. The former towpath has not been converted into a bike trail in this part of the state, so we would be doing mostly road riding today along 104. What I'm showing over here is where I know the last farthest south lock remaining on the canal is. I saw pictures of it, and it's basically in a bunch of weeds over by that gas station. I wasn't going to make the rest of the crew cross a 2-lane highway to check it out. It doesn't seem like it's anything that wonderful. The good thing is there was a little park with a different lock that we were able to see, and one of the cool things about the lock was that up here, when they restored the canal in the early 1900s, they refaced all the locks with concrete, but down here it looks like they had not done that, so I kind of got to see what one of the canal locks looked like with the original stone, and that's this coming up right here. You can see that 104 has become a much more chill road with a little bit of shoulder in different spots here. We were pretty comfortable riding it, but don't follow this route if you're afraid to do road riding. You would not enjoy it at all. But I thought it was pretty, views of the valley, views of the foothills, and all that kind of thing. And I was also surprised how much of the canal bed remained. It's not really going to show on camera, but off to our right, for a lot of the ride, there was the old canal. You know, basically it's just a ditch in the ground now, but there was some parts that were watered and stuff like that. I just didn't expect there to be much left from what I had read. Portsmouth itself doesn't really seem to have a lot of its canal history intact. I think just floods and the way the city's been built, it's just been pretty much paved over. And I think 104 does cover parts of the canal as well. As you could see, there would be plenty of options early in this day to get some resupply. We didn't need it as we had just started out and we were all filled up on snacks and stuff like that. The other great thing about this day along 104 is we had a tailwind and we were just cruising and making amazing time. We came to a part where Ben had designed the route, which it must have looked like these were roads on the map. They were more of just farm roads. Everybody else opted not to go this way, but me and Aaron were like, what the heck, let's try it out. We're making good time and it's early in the day. So we rode some of them. They were farm roads, but then they went to what was clearly an abandoned road that used to exist. So here we're on the abandoned road. It's concrete underneath all of these weeds. but we came up to a bridge over the creek, and it was so overgrown it didn't look like we were going to be able to get our bikes through there. So we actually turned around, but we just followed that road all the way out to 23. As I mentioned, 23 is the more busy road, but it had a gigantic shoulder, and I think we only had to do 2 miles on it to get into Waverly. In Waverly, we rejoined the gang at the CVS. People needed some supplies there, and everyone felt good to step into the air conditioning for a minute. Then we stopped at this coffee shop and got some sandwiches and coffee. We knew we wanted to make a kind of a quick stop, as we would be having dinner not that far down the road in Chillicothe. And we were also going to have pretty much the only climbing of the day once we left Waverly, so we didn't want to be overstuffed or anything like that. This part of the day had us avoiding a big bend in the Scioto River Valley, so we headed off onto country roads in a different direction, and that's also why there was a little bit of climbing on our way to Chillicothe. Real gray sky, so I preemptively put my camera in a waterproof bag and put my saddle cover on, just in case. I told everyone to keep going, I'll catch up. It's starting to sprinkle now. It's so hot that I won't mind getting wet. I just always prefer my stuff doesn't get wet, but it's also early enough in the day, 30 miles at least left, that if we do get wet and it passes, we probably have time to dry off on the road. So we'll see. Doesn't matter. We're getting to campsite no matter what. None of the roads today have been horrible, but we are now on more chill rural and even forested roads here, so see how long this lasts. I think all the way to Chillicothe though. Horses, rain, car back. Here comes the rain. For our yearly 4th of July bike tour, we're not winging it. We have all our campsites reserved for the whole week, so we know where we're going every evening. When I make these videos, I hear from people who are like, oh, if it's raining, I just duck somewhere, or I change where I'm staying, or if I'm tired, I do that. We don't. We always end up getting done the route that we have planned for the day. So if it's going to rain, we're going to get wet. In this section here, we actually hit some loose, wet gravel roads. I was on 55 millimeter tires, and in general, the crew was on wider tires. Ames was on a little bit narrower, and when we were going down the hill, I know it could be a little bit sketchy. I felt a little bit sketchy on my bike, but it was still cool. I'd still rather be on roads like this and just take it easy if I have to. As you can see, the run into Chillicothe, most of the roads were pretty chill. The final road we got on was a little more busy, but it still wasn't a big deal, and almost all the cars gave us plenty of room when they would pass us. That's always really nice on a tour, and I don't know, it just feels like in different places people react different to bikes, and this was one of the times where we didn't really have any issues. Chillicothe is another Ohio city I had never seen. That was kind of a theme of this trip, trying to see different places, so I was interested in checking it out. Also, I know some of you are photographers and photography enthusiasts who follow this channel. There's a YouTube channel by a guy named Matt Day. He lives here in Chillicothe, and I followed it for a long, long time. He does live streams as well. That big smokestack in the background is the paper mill, which it was just announced in April it's closing. It still employs, I think, almost 1,000 people in Chillicothe, and it's over 100 years old, so that's definitely a big bummer for the town.
Chillicothe for you.
Ohio's first capital.
Ohio's first capital. Are there any proud Chillicotheans watching? Comment in the comment section.
And also let us know why no one has opened a coffee shop called Chili Coffee.
Ugh.
Our dinner destination was 50 West Brewing. It's interesting because we passed the original 50 West when we do the regular Ohio to Erie, but it's so close to Cincinnati that it's always almost at the end or almost at the beginning, so we've never stopped at the original one. This was a very cool location. The beer and the food were both fantastic. We had rolled into dinner much earlier than we had anticipated. We didn't stop that much, and as mentioned, we had the rip and tailwind that kept us moving. But it was a good thing because when we got here, it absolutely started pouring. It didn't look like it was going to last all evening, so we decided to actually wait it out for a while, being that we had plenty of time. And I think the day only had about 12 miles left on it, and that was going to be all on bike path. So after it looked like the bulk of the thunderstorms had passed, we headed out in a little bit of drizzle towards the Paint Creek bike trail. It was interesting when we happened to be at the brewery, there was a big group ride that was getting together, and I guess they get together every single week. So we ended up sitting at a table and chatting with some people and getting a really good conversation in. I don't remember any names because it was so early in the trip, unfortunately. It was kind of interesting though. One couple, when we told them that we were heading out this way, told us that the trail wasn't very well maintained. So when we're riding along it here where it's really, really nice, what it looks like must be on the flood walls or the levees, we kept wondering when it was going to get worse. And the fact that it had been raining so hard, we were wondering, is this going to turn to muddy, crushed limestone? We had no idea. We stopped at this gas station knowing it was our last chance to get supplies before we would hit the campground because there was not going to really be anything else on this bike trail between here and where we would be camping.
Howdy, viewers. Like and subscribe.
As the trail remained nice, we just kept joking. We were just really wondering where this unwell maintained trail idea was coming from because it was very well maintained. It was all nicely paved. And I don't know, it doesn't even seem like it'd be that bad on a road bike. We were thinking maybe they were more rodeo oriented, but whatever. It was a nice trail to ride. And this was a pleasant surprise. We were passing Hopewell Mound complexes here. There was signage out in the field and then interpretive signage along the trail. Anywhere it's not mowed is where the mounds were. They had been excavated back in the day and then kind of put back together. And I'm sure they've been farmed over a bunch, but it was still a cool surprise to get to see a little bit of that ancient American history there.
Is it worth it?
I had stopped for a little nature break, as they call it in pro cycling, and then I caught back up with the gang right when we were getting to the campground. This was called Lake Hill Campground. It was a private one. It was up on a hill, Lake Hill, and it was a dammed up lake there. So we found the office, found where our campsites were. They were sitting way up on this cool ridge with a cool view of the river down below. Me and Ben, after getting all set up, we decided we were going to go swimming. Everybody else went and took showers instead. But that was one of the priorities on this trip, was trying to see how many times we could get in a lake somewhere. We chilled at the fire for a while, had some snacks, and then it started raining. And in the morning, it absolutely started pouring. My tent does a really good job at keeping everything dry from the top,
Real wet.
but it got raining so hard that I started to get wet from underneath. Erin got up earlier. She went over to one of the cabins that had no one in it but had a porch and started to pack up her stuff. And then she came and woke me up. I went back to sleep because it was raining so hard and said, hey, there's a lull in the weather right now. It's our chance. Hurry up. Let's get it together. And so I'm glad I did, because that's one of the things that I really don't want, is to have to pack up in the pouring rain so everything's going wet in the bags. I mean, the tent was already wet and stuff like that. But also in the evening, I don't want to have to ever set up in the rain. So that's always one of the things I hope for on a tour, is that the rain hits at the right times, which it kind of did on this trail, because you can see we're back on the Paint Creek Trail, but it's not raining right now. Believe it or not, this is the first bike tour I've ever done with full fenders, and I gotta say, this is exactly where they come in handy when the trails are really wet and there's big puddles everywhere, but it's not actually raining. So it's nice not to be getting your back wet or getting your feet wet, or just, wet from underneath in general. Also keeping your drivetrain cleaner and all that kind of thing too. We did have to make a couple more jokes about the trail maintenance thing, because we literally passed 3 crews out on the trail cleaning it, blowing the leaves off, getting any fallen branches from the storm the night before out of the way. So I'm not really sure where they got that idea, especially living so close to the trail, but it's a wonderful trail if you ever have the chance to ride it. I had no idea what this was going to look like when we planned the route. I didn't know if it was open farmland, but it was a real good mix and just enough to keep the whole thing entertaining. There was one mishap on this day, as a groundhog ran out in front of Brad. He cleared it with his front tire, but then it turned around and his rear wheel hit it really hard. It sent him almost over the bars into the side ditch, and he was sitting there in a pricker bush in a puddle. Unfortunately, he shaved some skin off his toe as he was wearing sandals, and it was a little bit uncomfortable for him, but we were able to get back on the road and he was able to finish the whole trip. As you can see, our luck ran out with the rain and it started pouring. I think we had about an hour of pretty decent rain out on the road. Also, if you're wondering where Ben has been, he decided to get up early at camp and head out on his own. He did some exploring, some extra miles. We rejoined with him just outside of the town or city of Washington Courthouse, another city we had never been to. But we had gotten a recommendation that there was a really good coffee shop there called Vinyl Records Coffee, or just Vinyl Coffee, yes. And it was a really good stop. So we worked our way through town and over to that spot. Also, as you can see, Ben's great route planning had us doing some of the cuts and stuff like that we would normally do around home. A lot of back alleys as we went through the city. So pretty cool route. Basically, when we planned this route, I had a couple places in mind that I wanted to check out in Bike Pass, and I did a very general drawing of it. And then Ben went in and spent a lot of the time actually dialing in the entire route. So we all had it on our bike computers, and we knew where we were going the whole time.
That's the one we got. We only had 40 minutes or something, right?
I have to say, not only have I never been to Washington Courthouse, but I'm not sure I'd ever even heard of it before. So the rain had let up a little bit right before we got to the coffee shop. We had really good sandwiches, really good coffee, but it looked like there was another quick blip of hard rain coming. So most of us ordered another drink and decided to wait it out a little bit before we headed back out so we wouldn't have to get completely soaked again, hopefully. It turned out to be a good decision as we only got a little bit of light drizzle as we were leaving and heading back out towards the trail. The trail isn't completely contiguous through Washington Courthouse. You have to take a couple roads before you can get back on it, and we had to exit the trail to get into town as well. There was another bit of road section, but as you could see, these are as chill as country roads could get. So really, really nice riding here too. This was our shortest day of the tour, kind of based on where we needed to get campgrounds and where we could be stopping along the trail. So this day was just 50 miles and almost no climbing at all. The first day was about 71 miles with 1,500 feet of elevation. So not bad climbing either, but this whole trip was kind of planned to keep it fairly flat. The last couple years we've done really, really climby bike tours, and this year we kind of wanted to make it a little more chill on the climbing, but still see some unique places. So we did climb where we had to, but as a whole, when you see the final numbers, this was a relatively flat way across Ohio as we followed canal towpaths and rail trails.
Oh, wow.
We stopped in Jamestown, Ohio at a grocery store. It was early enough in the day that nobody was really hungry to stop at a restaurant or anything for dinner, so anyone got sandwiches or chips or whatever they may need for the campground, which was only a few miles away from here, but wasn't really close to anything else but this town. The weather really started to change and become hot and sunny, which was really nice because it dried us off in our clothes and all that. But also once we got to the campsite, and it being our shorter day, we had plenty of time to lay everything out and get everything all dried up before we set up. This campground was really nice. It was extremely new, I think less than a year. So it had these private showers that you see there on the back of the shower house, which are my favorite kind. You open a door, it's just you. Great, so brand new, clean facilities. It's a little sparse out here, as you can see, as they've planted all these trees, but they haven't grown up yet. So, you know, it's one of those things that this is going to be a really nice stop in a number of years. Right now, it's a little sparse. We were the only ones there for a while, and then just one other RV pulled up. So pretty much had this place to ourselves and got a beautiful sunset, got a fire going, and just hung out. It was kind of a mix because it was great that we got in so early to dry stuff out and get a fire going and hang out and eat, but there wasn't really much to do here, so it was kind of just a little bit of choring and then a lot of just hanging out on this evening. Did you mean to put your bandana in your coffee?
Absolutely not. Thank you.
That seems like a weird thing. One thing about camping in the summer in Ohio is with the dew, and if you're not under tree cover, almost every single day your stuff is going to end up pretty damp. You release the rain fly on the tent and stuff like that. I always hear from people out west, like, why do you guys always sleep with a rain fly on? Well, everything is always wet in the morning this time of year. Leaving the campground, we had about 5 miles down the bike trail into Xenia, Ohio. We had that planned as a breakfast and coffee stop. That Xenia station right there, it's pretty cool. A bunch of different bike trails come into Xenia from different directions. And we've actually come in 2 or 3 and gone through a number of ways on the official Ohio Erie, and then also modified versions we had done in the past as well. We stopped at the coffee hub, which is part community outreach and part coffee shop. We had breakfast sandwiches. It was kind of cool because the owner who we met was wearing a Towpath Trail t-shirt. He's originally from Canton, and he does work with the Towpath and volunteers and donates and everything like that. So it was kind of cool experience to go and see his place, chat with him. Right there, we missed the trail that we were trying to get back on. And this trail would be taking us to Dayton, Ohio. On this bike tour, we had decided to try and hit the road every morning by about 8:30. That's not something we usually do. We usually get up and kind of leave whenever, but that usually gets us on the road a little later. So getting up earlier, even though I'm not a huge fan of getting up around 8 or 7:30 on vacation, was totally worth it because it made for when we had those bad weather days, there was time to wait out the rain and still get to camp. And then on other days, it just made it so we were able to roll in, take our time setting up, if we were going to eat dinner somewhere, go swimming, make camp meals and all that. So I think it worked out really well. And so just kind of, getting out of bed and getting going was pretty cool. Never going to be that 6 a.m. kind of bike tours and all that stuff and beating the heat of the day, but this is kind of a reasonable compromise. Aaron and I had done a day trip to Dayton before and ridden a little bit of the bike trails out there and around the city, so some of this was familiar as we got real close, but in general it was mostly new. We did want to go into Dayton and get some coffee and some snacks. Aaron had a spot picked out. She also knew they had instant coffee, which we were going to need for the rest of the trip. A couple friends and some people from the online community had warned us that with all the rain, there might be some issues with the trail. Luckily, you could see we did a little bit of riding around puddles and stuff like that, but we didn't have to take any major detours or bypasses. Rain and storm-wise, the forecast for the rest of the trip was looking really, really nice, but we did have to deal with a lot of heat and a lot of humidity. Leaving Dayton, I got a quick clip here of Little Fish Brewing. This is their newer Dayton location. Aaron and I actually really like their other location near Athens on a bike trail. We go out there and we ride the mountain bike trails called the Baileys. So it was too early in the day to stop and get a drink. I don't even think they were open, but it was at least cool to see where they are, and hopefully we'll get back there at some point. A good chunk of the rest of the day would have us on the Great Miami Trail. This is a trail none of us had ridden either, and I had no expectations for the trail, being that I just didn't really know what this part of the state really looked like. And again, I was really pleasantly surprised. There was a mix of river valley and woods and some farms, but it wasn't completely out there exposed. For some reason in my mind, I guess I was picturing, a little farther north, as this would become just like really open farmland as you got way up near Toledo and all that. Because a lot of the route we're following is the Miami and Ohio Canal on this day. And I know just where I've seen the Maumee River area up north, and me and Aaron have ridden the trails up there, it's pretty different looking than it is down here. So really pleasant surprise, really wonderful day on this trail. I've been asked before why we don't always keep our crew together on these long rides. I don't know, they're long rides. Sometimes we're all riding together, joking around, having conversations. Other times someone just feels like riding off on their own. Someone needs to use the bathroom, someone needs to refill water. We just kind of stop and catch back up and do that kind of thing. It just makes it more fun for everybody to be able to move a little bit at your own pace, but still spend time together. Sometimes, like on an 80-mile day on a loaded bike on the road, you're just alone with your thoughts, and that's what you're in the mood to do. So, yeah, that's how it goes. And I don't know, I kind of like it that way. The towns along this trail were all new to us as well.
Yeah.
I think Miami, Tip City, Troy, and then Piqua, which would be our dinner stop for the evening and where we would be breaking off the trail and heading in a different direction. This is Troy, and they had this absolutely amazing courthouse. You could kind of see it there in the distance. Obviously, GoPros are too wide angle if you're not up close to something to get a good view, but it was really, really cool. And this river valley here was pretty interesting. And then we crossed over the river, and we actually the trail then weaves through some of the neighborhoods, through a little industrial area before heading back out into the woods on the way to Piqua. Our whole group kind of came back together for the run into the city. I was getting so hungry at this point. I knew we were close to dinner, but I was also getting pretty low on energy, so I had to eat some snacks anyways. This was one of those days that was getting long, and I couldn't wait to get in and sit down in some AC. Our dinner stop was a brewery called Crooked Handle. Good food and good beer. As I mentioned, I was so hungry, I think I took one clip of my beer, but nothing else inside the brewery. I think I ate my food so fast. Piqua has some unique and interesting history. I read the Wikipedia page, as I often do when I'm sitting waiting for my food or having a beer in a city I've never been to before. It was actually a city that had a municipal nuclear reactor. It was a brief test done by the Army Corps of Engineers that they thought might be something that would spread, but obviously did not for, I don't know, pretty obvious reasons, I guess. So this last leg of the day was 20 miles out on country roads. We knew there wasn't really going to be anywhere to stop at all. Anything we wanted for the evening would have had to have been grabbed back there in town. I knew my plan was just to make a camp meal for dinner, one of those dehydrated meals with the boiling water and the camp stove. It's one thing I forgot to mention in my gear video when I was showing myself pack everything up. Everybody said, "Where's your camp stove?" Well, me and Aaron split that up. I carry the tent and that kind of thing, and she carries the camp stove and the coffee and all of that. So a very pleasant ride out here through the country. Only one road that was a little busier, and I think we only had like a mile on that, so really, really chill and easy riding. A little bit of hills, but nothing crazy, just a tiny bit of elevation. Our campsite at Keisler Lake was really cool. We were right on the water, and we were only a few hundred yards from the swimming beach. We did all the work first. That's what I like to do. I like to get my tent set up, get everything ready to go. We got our firewood and all that, and then we walked over, and it was some great swimming for a little while. Like I said, huge priority for me on this trip was getting out and having a pretty summery experience. I enjoyed 2 warm beers while watching the sunset. Absolutely beautiful spot for it with the sun setting right over the lake. Our tents are set up behind us. So pretty perfect end to a very, very long day on the loaded bikes. This was roughly the halfway point of our trip. So I am going to leave it there as this video is already getting long. We will pick up with part 2 and a bunch more miles and a bunch more new places to check out in the next video. Thanks as always for watching. Consider becoming a channel member if you want to support what we do here some more, but at the least, give this video that like. Peace.